Yes, yes, y'all. It is another one where daddy's being lazy. I find it so much more fun to not talk to myself. And what makes it even better is when I get to have very cool people on the show with me so I can talk to them, find out what they're up to, and give you, my dear listener, a different perspective. But I stack the decks in my favor. What I usually do is just find people who agree with me on everything and then bring them on the show so they make me look brilliant. This is another one of those. This is Mr. Kevin Breeding. What is up, my man?
Hey, Jonathan, how are you, man? It is good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Man, this is, so what's interesting is that over the last couple episodes, I've been talking to friends, talking to mentors, talking to people that I met in masterminds. And that's precisely where you and I met. What was it? Maybe 2015 or so, where we actually were acquainted at a very high level mastermind. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think it was 14 or 15, somewhere in there. We were down in Austin with our good buddy Ryan Levesque, and it was a great event. Actually, one that I have a lot of things that I took away from Ryan's mastermind. It was a great place to be.
I'm going to ask you about that. In fact, maybe that's where we'll start. But first, for our listeners out there who are wondering, who the heck is Kevin Breeding? Have you figured out who you are yet, Kevin?
I'm working on it. I ask myself every day. So no, the short and skinny of it is I am husband to Susie, dad to Natalie, Mallory, Carly, and Abby, and granddad actually to Phoenix, which is kind of fun. And but in the daytime, I keep myself busy by being an entrepreneur's mentor and coach. I come out of the corporate world. I did a stint at Walmart for about 6 years and worked all over the world for them. Then jumped into agency work and figured out that I really didn't like the crowd kind of stuff. I wanted to get into the mess of entrepreneur stuff, and I like to get into the messy stuff where people's lives are really needing impact. And so now I work strictly with entrepreneurs. And let me say that, a couple of corporate CEOs too. They're trying to figure out life.
So let's break that down a little bit. Let's unpack that.
Yeah.
So you did the traditional path. Then you went to college. You went to corporate America. And how the heck did you get out? How did you escape?
Actually, Jonathan, it's an interesting story. Mallory and I were talking about it last night. My daughter, I left Walmart after 6 years because I was walking through the airport. I'd just come home. I'd been helping them with the European expansion and walked through the airport. They had come to pick me up, and neither one of them recognized me. I walked right past them.
What?
Yeah, and in fairness, I started a scruff, so they weren't looking for a guy with a beard. They were 3 and 4 at the time, and that day I decided I was done. And that Monday morning, I went in and talked to Don Soderquist, who was the COO at the time, and said, "I'm done." And he said, "You're crazy. You're the youngest P&L responsible director this company's ever had. You've got a massive future ahead of you." And I told him, I said, "Yeah, but my kids didn't recognize me last night in the airport." He just stopped, stunned. And he's like, "I get it." And that was it. I gave notice and stepped out.
Did you have a backup plan? Anything else to fall back on? What? How the hell are you so brave then?
Well, it's a matter of just kind of the things that are so important to you. Some things move you so deeply that you're like, you know what? No. Absolutely not. And some people might call that a flaw. I consider it, something that is very self-defining. I moved right out of the business. I had great contacts. And at the time, everybody was looking to hire a Walmart exec. And so, it was pretty easy to go find. And ended up as a partner in an advertising firm and a branding company in St. Louis. And so it was actually a fairly easy transition. But, I think back on it now and think, holy cow, that's crazy. But at the time, it made total sense to me because there's nothing more important than making sure that what is the priority regardless of the circumstance. Situational ethics don't work for me.
I didn't even know there was such a thing as situational ethics.
Well, you'll work in corporate for a while. You'll find them every day.
That's the problem. See, I never worked in corporate, so I don't know about these splendid little things. So what was the move there? So you're in Walmart, you got the relative safety and security of a big company, regular steady paycheck, and you go to this agency, marketing agency. I mean, what was that transition like for you?
It was night and day because, I went from having a team of 150 people in 9 countries, administrating north of 280 million in 6 currencies, and to a team of 20 with a little company that was trying to figure out how to break the $15 million mark. And over the next 5 years, it ended up doing about 60 million a year, and ended up rolling it up and selling it. And so it was a big transition because I realized, I look back at it now and see that was actually the beginning of my coaching career. Because what it was is I took both business partners as well as a lot of the people that I worked with, and we had to just start thinking differently. They were looking for projects that were $100,000 at a time, and we had to get out of that habit. We started looking for projects that were $500,000 and $1 million and a $2 million project, and going after those things, knowing that we were going to get rejected in the early stages because we didn't have the game to play at that level. But you had to stop thinking you couldn't go win business like that. And so instead of, doing so-and-so's insurance, production, we're going after Pfizer. We're going after, American Airlines or Boeing or BMW. And, we had to go around the block a couple times with them. But ultimately, we did product launches for all of those.
Now, you're talking about going after these big companies, and I imagine that was a huge deal when you transitioned to that. Were you like the Don Draper of that operation?
No, my every project that we delivered, ultimately, I had to touch it. It was I had to make sure that the producers were there, that the technical teams were there, the touring companies were ready to go, and it actually jumps us forward into what I'm doing now, because so much of the work that I do, both that I had to do on myself as well as the people that I work with now, is I have to help them shift the way they think. They have to stop thinking about going after clients who are broke. That's why they can't sell anything, is because they're selling to broke people. And, and realizing that if you truly believe in what you do, then it's simple to sit down and have a conversation with what you would consider a whale at the time, because what you've got to bring is better than anything else they've seen.
What was that mental shift like when you took that company from you said they were trying to break 15 million to 60 million. What kind of things go on in their heads? What was the things that you guys had to work through to get to that next level? Or that's like 3 levels up.
Yeah, I mean, there's the standard things. I mean, you had to look at systemization. You have to look at how to optimize operation. You have to, to figure out how can I take 3-level players and move them to 7s. And how do you? Well, and 2, go back and assess. Do I have all the right seats on the bus, and do I have the right people in the seats? And that is an exercise and a process that's exactly the same whether you're a solopreneur or you're running a $1 billion company. And then the partners had to sit down and say, okay, are we willing to put ourselves out there? Are we willing to reinvest the biggest check we've ever made? That is a major shift, because what happens is people who think too small, they get a paycheck and they immediately think, how can I spend it? An entrepreneur in a mind shift is thinking, how can I invest it and multiply it? And it's so instead of getting my first $100,000 gig and running out and getting buying an S-Class Mercedes or leasing it and saying that I bought it, you look at it and say, wait a minute, I need to figure out, how do I take this $100,000 win and turn it into a $500,000 win? And then how do I turn that into a $5 million win? And it's this simple process of learning how to reward yourself, but then how to lean forward and say, okay, what have I not been doing that I need to be adding into the process? And for me, it all comes back around to kind of the stuff that hits in Blueprint. I think there's those 7 principal assets that are part of your life that I think are super important, and you pay attention to where you are with those 7 things. And when you do that, 1, business is attracted towards you, and 2, wisdom becomes your companion, and you start to see things rather than being dazzled by things. You really kind of get to the heart of what's happening around you, and you're more aware as success is coming to you, so that you're not glamorized by it, and you're not taken off to where you're spending money way farther, way faster than you should have. And you're realizing that, hey, you know what? I've now turned an idea into a marketable product. Now I have to take a marketable product and turn it into a business. There's a big difference in that string of things, and most people miss it.
I like that you talked a little bit about rewards and having a balance or harmony in that. So how do you do that? So you get your win, you know that you have to invest in the business, but how do you reward yourself? And what does that look like?
Yeah, the big thing for me is you have to understand what your currency is. My personal currency is freedom. I want to be able to work on the projects that I want to work on with the people that I want to work with when I want to work. And so what I do is I reward myself with giving my schedule breathing time. I don't do, I'm not one of these guys that does, 19-hour days, and I'm not doing, launches that are
You're
leading.
not grinding?
No, 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 no,
Okay,
no. In fact,
man.
yeah, I realize that may work for some. That is not for me. It's not.
No, 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 no. Wait a second. Wait a second. Wait, I'm going to call you on some BS right now.
All right.
You just said, I realize that will work for some. Do you really believe that those people out there putting that out there, that they're working 24/7, 8 days a week, 366 days a year? Do you think they're really doing that?
I think they are working more than they believe they are working, but they're doing it because they don't have anything else to do. There's nothing else that feeds them. And I think that ultimately that's unhealthy. Yeah, here again, everybody makes their choice, but I am a firm believer that in order to be the best entrepreneur that I can be, I've got to be working on things like my schedule. I've got to be working on my health. I've got to be working on my relationship. Every person that I work with in my coaching business, if their business is struggling, 9 times out of 10, it's not their sales funnel.
You mean I don't have to get more traffic and leads?
It's great for selling your next course, but my thing is that if there's an issue at home, or if you're not functioning at a high level from a health standpoint, you're not showing up in your business. 60% of you is showing up in your business, and 60% is not going to get it done. If you're not investing in self-development, if you're not, if you're not going to I tell you, it's not even about going to masterminds for your business. If you're not self-developing for something that makes you a better person, not just a better marketer or a better salesperson or a better coach. We do self-development for our profession all the time, and we completely negate what makes us better as a human being. And so that willingness to say, you know what, there is more to this thing than just, getting more leads, more Facebook ads, more sales. Whenever I show up as a better me, the sales come naturally. People say, man, I want to know. It's funny. We moved into this house 9 weeks ago. And in the last month, I've probably had 12, 13, 14 people who are on Zoom calls and just like this. And they say, man, you look more relaxed than I've ever seen you look. And I'm telling you, business is doing exactly where I need it to be. The house process, the move was tough. But honestly, I'm working far less, but far more effectively than I've ever worked before. And it just simply is a matter of paying attention to the other stuff besides just grinding in the business every day and saying, I'll eventually get to that relationship. I'll eventually get to better health. I'll eventually, start working out or whatever. Yeah, no, you won't. You won't. I mean, I love this. It's how many people do you know that, whenever health comes up, they say, yeah, I need to lose about 20 pounds. Everybody. How many people are actively taking action, have a plan, are executing the plan, and are being accountable to somebody to say, you know what, I want to make sure I'm going to get it done. Yeah, but you're the exception to it. Most people don't have any plan at all. They're just words in the air. They're just throwing stuff out there and saying, yeah, you know what, I'm going to get to it and do it. And then they beat themselves up wondering why they can't hit their goals. Well, it's because they're not doing anything to make a goal become a reality.
All right, so listen, got to pay the bills. So here is a quick advertisement for your ears that I think you're going to find useful. How would you like to spend more time with your family and less time on your business? Before anyone chooses to do business with you, they need to know one important thing. Can I trust you? The only problem is building trust can take forever. And I know you don't have that kind of time. But what if there was a way to build trust in minutes instead of years? You'd want that, wouldn't you? Good news, buckaroo. That's exactly what you'll get inside my digital daddy's toolkit. It's got my top 3 speed influence tools to make you a trusted expert in any market quickly. Go to daddysworking.com/DDT to grab your copy today.
What it makes me think of right now is, I don't know if you've heard of it, but I'm on this kick. It's called 75 hard. 2 workouts a day, 1 indoors, 1 outdoors, a gallon of water. You got to follow a meal plan, read 10 pages of business book, and take a progress pick every day and not take a day off. So I share it with a couple of my buddies. And these guys are younger than me. And they have little children, little babies. We all hang out. Our kids play and all that. These guys are younger than me and they are fatter than me. They are all fatter than me. And when I tell them I'm doing this, they're like, dude, you're already skinny, man. What do you need to lose weight for? And I'm like, this is not about losing weight. This is about mental discipline. This is about being tough. And one of them says to me, and this guy's so successful, but he grinds his ass off for that success. Like he's got a total trade-off of work being number one. I explained the plan to him and he says, yeah, man, I think I can get on that. And this guy, he's got mental toughness. I know because he's inspired me many times. And then he's like, yeah, well, the 2 workouts, I don't know, maybe I can get one. A gallon of water a day? Oh, man, that's a lot of water. Oh man, a meal plan? I don't know. And I'm like, you can't do this. All right. You can talk about it. And there's a difference between talking about it and being about it. That's rampant in our world today. So Kevin, self-development, you talked about that. What do you do for self-development?
The thing for me is I look at kind of the total picture. So I want to make sure that I'm involved in a mastermind, like what we were in with Ryan. I'm looking at going back to Genius Network with Joe Polish.
Are you?
And so I was in that for 4 years, I guess, and it's time to go back. I needed to step out and execute, and now it's time to go back and relearn again. The other thing that I focus on in me personally is just my meditation time, my reflection time, and it sort of gets over into the spirituality side, which is an intense piece of my life. It's something that's been part of me since forever. And for years, I would negate that and just kind of say, okay, that's that thing over there that I do. Then I switch hats and I come in and I get into my business. And I would like.
Why did you separate that piece? We've talked about this over the years, and you've always kept that compartmentalized.
Always did. I mean, it was interesting. In fact, I don't even know if you know this. I actually am a licensed ordained minister.
I did not know that.
Did not know that. And for years, I'd never told anybody about it. And here again, I'm not working vocationally in the church, but it is something that I was struggling with. How do I, I'm going to scare people away if I tell them about that. And actually what it is I'm doing more what I consider ministry in my coaching work now than I ever did in the church. And it's not about religion. It's absolutely about getting somebody to get in line, understanding that there is energy and power in the universe, whatever tradition you happen to follow, and that how can you allow that to radiate from you? It is, some people may call it, charisma, they may call it, energy, they may call it light, they may call it, holiness, whatever. But if something is that intricate and an intensely personal part of who you are, and you extricate it from your business, again, you're showing up now at 60%. Well, you think about that for a second. If I'm only 60%, if I'm 20% of me is gone because I don't allow my faith to be part of my work. If 20% is gone because I don't play keys and allow music to feed me every day. Now I keep my piano in my office, And if 20% is not there because I'm in terrible health, well, all of a sudden now I'm showing up at 40%. Well, no wonder my business sucks. You cannot operate at an optimum level if you are negating the things that make you who you are. You can't. It's impossible. But yet everybody does. And what they do is they do it through grinding. They go at it with, I'm just going to work more. And everybody, I say everybody, I need to be more specific about it. Most entrepreneurs that end up coming to me have said over and over and over again, I'm going to work on and you fill in the blank, when I get my business to a number. I'm going to work on my health whenever I get to $500,000.
Why doesn't that work? Why doesn't I'm gonna when? Why doesn't that work?
It's backwards. It's completely backwards, because what's happening is you are taking half of yourself, pushing it as hard as you possibly can, chasing this thing that you're not ever going to do. And it's like the losing weight thing. It's like maybe I can do one workout a day. You're not going to get there. And here again, the thing for me is, this is not about work-life balance. It's not about, having everything at 100%.
There's something right there that I want to ask you before you move on.
Yeah.
Is that real? Is there such thing as work-life balance?
No. I don't think, not in the traditional terms like we've been told. I think there is a methodology, and it's part of kind of what I do with Total Life Blueprint, is this idea that says, decide where you want these things to be. Like, I would love to have health and my workout routine be at the absolute forefront, to where I'm far more, beast and in better shape than I am right now. I know for a fact that I'm not going to do that given what else is going on in my life. So I'm proactively saying, I'm going to go this far and I'm going to be good with that for this season. And that's where that has to be.
Talk about that right there. There's another good point that I don't think people get that I want you to hit on. You said, I'm going to be good with that for this season. What does that mean?
Well, you have to remember that we are constantly evolving and moving forward. And so we have to say, in the situation that I'm in right now, in the season that I'm in right now, I knew whenever we were doing the move. I mean, it took us from the time we bought the house midstream and did the final touches and moved in, it was probably 120 days. I knew during that time, especially during the move, health was not going to be at the forefront because, man, it's like, you're doing quick takeout and grabbing food on the run and, doing all the stuff that you need to do whenever you've got all the meetings and the contractors and you're coming out to the site and all that kind of stuff. And I just had to be okay with that. But then I also had to set a marker. And for me, I literally put a marker on my calendar that says, okay, we got to come back and get our health line back in order. It's like whenever you do a launch in your business, if you're somebody who does launches.
What's a launch, Kevin? Well, I don't know what a launch is. Our listeners may not know.
I don't use them in my business, but a lot of people do, where they'll do kind of like a mini marketing series, a series of videos that go in sequence with orchestrated emails to where it's like this big hubbub where you're building interest and then you release your product and, have a set time that it's available. When people do those, because they take so much time in their business
and effort,
it is going to absolutely steal time and availability from the other 6 principal assets. And you have to know that and plan for that. You have to know, I'm going to have less time to spend with my wife. I'm going to have less time to spend with my kids if I choose this model of marketing. And being aware of that. But what happens is people go, you know what, I'm going to fix this relationship. I just got to go make this money real quick. And so they go and do the money, and then they come back and they want to celebrate it with somebody that's meaningful to them, and nobody's there because they're off trying to live a life and be a family without you. And so, it's understanding seasons and how to let things ebb and flow that gives you the ability to show up 100% and be where you need to be. I mean, the one that kills me, Jonathan, is, my kids are older now, but I remember, going to the basketball games, going to, the soccer matches and all that other kind of stuff, and seeing 5 or 6 dads down at the end of the bleachers on their phone. And I'm going, man, you have got life so completely backwards because the very essence of what you're fighting for is out here trying to please you on the field, and you've got your head up somebody's butt. I mean, it just drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. It's funny. I remember I went through a pretty difficult divorce and a bankruptcy. Now it's 9 years ago, and I sat down with my youngest daughter, Mallory, who's actually staying with us this week. But back when we were trying to figure out how to heal our relationship, I kept saying to her, but you don't understand, Mallory, I was trying to do this. I was trying to build the business so that you would have opportunities that I never had. And she looked me dead square in the eye and she said, Dad, I never asked you for that.
Whoa, take that.
You weren't doing that for me. You were doing it for you. I appreciate the stuff, but you weren't doing that for me. You talk about a wake-up call, man. It's like, whoa.
I don't know if you get my emails, man, but tonight I actually am admitting that in my email because I woke up to something yesterday where I'm like, I'm living a lie. I've been living this lie. I even believed my own lie. And I've said that all these years I've been working for my family, and I'm not. I mean, simply not working for my family. I'm working for my purpose. And so it's a different thing. They might all fall under there, but what is my purpose? It's not that I'm working for my family. I've been lying, and I realized that yesterday. So it's so weird that you say it today.
Well, that's one of the critical mistakes that freelancers, entrepreneurs, business owners make is we lie to ourselves all the time. And we tell ourselves that we're better at this than we actually are, or we tell ourselves that we're doing better than we actually are. A funny example, I had a guy that's part of my Catalyst program, and he kept, kind of really being down on himself and beating himself up and frustrated and all. And he's like, I'm just not seeing the number of sales that I need to see. I'm just not having the volume and the revenue come in. And I said, well, I tell you what, turn and screen share your calendar with me. Let me see what's going on. Well, he didn't have any prospect calls going on.
What? How's it going to make sales?
Well, that's my whole thing. I was going, dude, are you just expecting people to, like poof right out of the sky? I said, it doesn't work that way. I said, the next thing you need to be doing, and this is great if somebody's just getting started, or maybe they've hit a lull in their business. The first thing I did whenever I stepped out of the agency then and started my own business now 15, 16 years ago, a friend of mine called me and he said, let me give you the best advice that you can ever possibly do. He says, you're going to do two things. You're going to write on a Post-it note and stick it on your phone. This was, back, landline days and kind of things. And then the question on the Post-it note is the person on the other side of this phone worth, and then you put your billable hour that you want to make. And at that time for me, it was, I wanted to be at $300 an hour. That's the revenue number that I wanted to do. And so every time I'm on the phone, I'm asking myself, is this person on the phone able to be in a relationship that's worth $300 an hour? And the answer is no. Hang up the phone. Second thing that he told me to do, he says, every single day, especially when you're starting out, you talk to 10 people you've never talked to before.
Oh, wow.
10 people. And he said, now, eventually your capacity is going to be where you can't keep up with 10. But in those early days, you absolutely talk to 10 people. And so now for me, whenever I go through, whenever I'm like, okay, I'm ready to kind of jump into the next growth phase, I'm on Facebook Messenger, I'm on email, I'm texting with folks, I'm on the phone with folks, doing check-ins and stuff like you and I do periodically, and just saying, hey, where are you and what's going on? When you do that, people, I had one happen last week with a guy that he actually bought my course the day before he's leaving on a 6-week trip to Bali. And he's like, can we do this via remote? And I told him, I said, yeah, as long as you promise you're going to vacation when you vacation, we'll work when it's time to work. And so the thing about it is, that was not a sales conversation. It had nothing. He was nowhere on my radar because he'd been a past coaching client, but I was just doing a check-in. And he's like, you know what? I need this because the business is great, but everything else is falling apart. And it just fell into that piece. So it's true. Talk to 10 people every day that you haven't talked to before, that you haven't talked to in a long time, and business finds itself. People are just attracted whenever you're at a spot that you know what you want and you know how to get it and you're executing it. People want that in their life.
Oh, guess what? Time is up for this week. I know you were just getting into that, and I don't blame you because it was just getting good. But we're trying to keep these episodes under a half hour, so we split it up into two. We'll be back next week with part 2 of this interview. Make sure you tune in then, and if you love what you're hearing, why not share this episode with someone who will also love it?
This is the podcastfactory.com.